All right, back out here in the garage, putting some frames together tonight. Thought I'd talk to you a little bit, show you how I was doing these frames. Going in the boxes, my cypress boxes that I got most of them done. I see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 more boxes to go, looks like. So I'm gonna try to talk while I'm working on these boxes and show you and talk to you a little bit too. I want to talk about the treatment versus treatment-free issue. I got into this making these videos because I can't personally help everybody that wants help, but I can tell them about the videos, and they can watch these videos, and I can help more people that way. So if that's my purpose, then I want to tell you and the people that would watch what I think about the treatment versus treatment-free issue. I kept bees. I've been keeping bees. This will be my 23rd year this next year. And when I started out, I didn't know what to do. I just did what they told me. And they told me to treat. And we treated with checkmate and apistan. And for a long time, for my first few years, that's what I did. I'd go to the bee club, and the older guys would say to treat with that stuff, so that's what I did. And we found out later that especially the checkmate was hurting the queen so bad, and they was getting immune to it because we was using it so much. So after a while, I tried to use the IPM, integrated pest management, use the screen bottom boards, do the brood breaks, and do drone brood management, and just been through the gamut over the course of 20 years of treating, treating and not treating. But I got to a point where I felt like I was treating, and I was buying packages not knowing that the packages were part of the problem, but the packages weren't surviving because they were packages. They were not local bees, and they were from down south, and they just don't do well. And I got a lot of people started with packages and they lost their bees. So that's a whole nother issue. But I want to talk a little bit about the mites. I went through a spell there at the end where I had so many packages. I probably had 35, 40 packages up in the barn, and just said, I'm tired of this. I'm spending all this money on treatments and treating and feeding, and my bees are still dying. I'm buying all these packages. I'm not going to do it. I'm treatment free. They're either going to make it and I'll be a beekeeper, or they're not going to make it and I won't. So that's what I did. I just quit treating altogether. I had 50 hives when I decided to do that. And I didn't treat. I for the first 10 years or so, I'd go to the bee clubs and talk to everybody. And I guess I got kind of burnt out on that and got tired of answering how many times do you get stung and some of the same questions we get asked all the time. But I quit going to the bee meetings and stuff probably the last 10 years up until this year. I'm back going now, but quit going to the bee meetings, decided not to treat, had 50 hives, and long story short, got down to 2. Probably the last 3 years I wasn't able to do much with them. And then got down to 2. I took over to our property, and then got down to 1 just this past winter. 1 hive. And the mites had wiped them out. I thought maybe I'd get down to 8. I was down to 12 at one point, and got down to 8. I kept thinking, well, this will be the end of it, though. I'll build back up from that. And it just didn't work. I lost every hive but 1. So if my purpose is to try to help people, I just want to tell you how I feel through my experience about the mite treatments. I talked to a guy the other day. I look at these YouTube channels all the time, I don't know if you can see that. Put a little glue in there and knock everything over. Put the glue in there like that and just try to get a good coating of glue where it's going to touch. It better not get too much where it's going to run all over the place. But I talked to a guy on a YouTube channel. I commented on his channel. He was treatment free, and I listen to a lot of treatment free stuff too, because I think we can learn stuff. Even though I treat, I can learn stuff from people that don't treat and see what they're doing. But I listened to the guy. He was a younger guy, and he talked like he had a lot of experience, I guess, compared to a lot of beekeepers he did. But he had 5 years experience and had in the neighborhood of 20 hives, about what I got now, and he caught them all in swarm traps, about like what I have now. I've taken that one hive and went to 20 by catching swarm traps. But I listened to his video, that one video, and it was just, he was just talking about how he thought it was so crazy to treat, and that his bees were making it without treating, and he didn't know why anybody would want to put things in the hive to treat for mites. So we commented back and forth, and of course we disagreed, but it wasn't. We had a good discussion. It wasn't like some of the discussions that you have on online or on social media, but it was cordial. But he just couldn't understand why I would want to put treatment in a hive. And I was the same way for a long time. You know, after I first got into it and then decided not to treat, I was probably 10 years. I had 10 years experience and then didn't treat for probably 10 years. So I know where he's coming from, and I've been there and done that already. Hopefully y'all can see that. I already got the glue. But I just don't understand now, looking back. I mean, I can see where the idea comes from, not to treat. You don't want to put pesticide and control pests on in a box full of bugs. So I can kind of understand it in a way, but at the same time, we take care of ourselves. We we take cold medicine, we take stuff for headaches. If we have a toothache, we take bellyache, foot hurting, whatever, we take medicine. To make ourselves feel better, so we'll do it for ourselves. And get back over. If we've got a pet, a dog or a cat, and something happens to them, we'll give them medicine and try to get them better. We got things that can help us. They say we all live longer because we got better medicines now, and we can take, pets to the vet and take care of them. We take care of farm animals. We have a, veterinarian to come out if we have our farm animals get sick. We have cows or sheep or pigs or whatever. If she has trouble having her babies, we'll have the vet come out and we'll take care of them. But somehow we seem to think that it's a good idea and that it's okay to just let our bees die. Let the strong, James Bond, let the strong survive. Live and let die. And I kind of agree with that to a certain extent. I think the strong ones do survive. I think one of the keys that I haven't done too much, I have raised some queens in the past, but I think we need to do a better job of getting some queens, and we don't need to breed off of our queens that don't perform very well, and certainly the ones that don't winter. we can do a better job of it. But we have the ability to take care of these mites without hurting the bees. It's not too hard to look at a hive, and if a hive lives, the treatment wasn't too bad if it survived with the treatment, but would have died with the mites, or if it dies because of the mites or the virus is caused by the mites, maybe the treatment wasn't so bad. It might not be the greatest thing in the world, but the bees survive and you have healthy bees, and you get to see what the bees are capable of doing when you do that, when you have healthy beehives. Let me get turned around here. I just put them in a box back here to kind of hold them. But we can have healthy bees. If we had cancer, chemotherapy ain't good for you, but if I had cancer, I'd take it, and it might not be the best thing for me, but it's better than dying. And I think it's the same with the beehive. I just don't understand letting a hive die. Yeah, I don't want to breed from that hive or get more queens from that hive, maybe. But if I can make it a healthy hive, I think it's a good idea to make it a healthy hive. I just don't understand that line of thinking now that I've had time to look at it. Another thing I look at is, when you're beekeeping and getting back into this, you look at people that's successful and you try to do something. You look at people that's successful at doing what you're trying to do. And the successful people I know that keep bees all treat their hives. They treat for the mites and try to have healthy bees. So I see people that don't treat, and like I say, I watch them online and listen to podcasts and all that, but I hear them say things like, well, you can't get too attached to your hives, and you can't be upset when your hives die. You're going to lose hives, that's just the way they go. I hear a lot of people too, and I don't really understand this, but everybody can do their own thing. I'm not, that's one of the great things about beekeeping. You can keep them any way you want to. But I see a lot of people, I'm just going to let them swarm. I'm going to do natural beekeeping. Well, this is a lot of money and a lot of work. So if that's what you want to do, more power to you. But for the money and the work that I put in it, I'd like to get a little something out of it. I'd like to at least for it to pay me back what I put into it. But and I guess it's what your definition of success too. My definition of success would not just be to pay for the hobby, but for it to make a little income off of, to be able to, I want to get a bigger extractor and have a honey house and, do some stuff and maybe, take a vacation from the money the bees have made me. And, we have the ability to do that if we do things properly and follow the right people. But if you have different priorities and you don't want to make honey and you don't want to have more bees, I think sometimes, especially newer beekeepers, and I know I did when I was new, you don't realize how prolific a bee or the beehive, the colony, can be, and how much honey they can make and how much more bees they can make until you have really healthy hives. I think when we start out, a lot of bees are going to die, and I think that's part of the learning process. A good mentor is necessary in beekeeping where it's not necessary in dairy farming necessarily, or cows, beef cattle, or sheep, or in beekeeping it's necessary. You got to have a mentor. But we can start out, I think we lose a lot of money, and then we learn some things, and we get to a point where maybe we're not losing so many, but I don't think we really truly know how prolific a colony can be and how much they can do and how much they can take care of themselves when they're healthy. And they just can't do that if they got a bug, a bunch of bugs in a hive that's eating them alive. You're not going to realize, if you've only been doing it a few years, you're not going to realize what it could be if those bees are healthy. Yeah, they might not die. They could be doing a lot better. I remember when I first started, my mentor was telling me, I had several people that was telling me the same thing. That's another. When people tell you, several people tell you the same thing, you probably ought to listen. That's just my experience. But they told me, you know, as far as splitting a hive, I thought splitting a hive meant taking a frame of brood out, or taking a frame here or there out, or one frame 1 month, or one frame, you know, and a couple weeks later take another frame out. That, if you got good healthy bees, that's not nearly enough. They're still going to swarm. I was blown away when I realized that if I had 2 deeps in the early spring, that I could split those 2 deeps into 2 and still have a hive that made a lot of honey, as much honey as possible from what was left over. I didn't realize how much you could split them. Didn't realize for a long time. It took me a long time to learn. You know, we just passed the solstice. I know what today is. It's Christmas Eve, so I know the date. But the winter solstice, I might have said summer. Winter solstice is just past. The days are starting to get longer. The bees' spring starts now. They start doing things right now. They start building up right now. When you're new, and I say new, you know, I don't mean a year or two. I mean the first few years. I know for me, the first few years that I kept bees, it took me a long time to realize that I thought they were building up in March and April, and they were building up in January and February. So it takes a while to figure that stuff out, and we can see, you know, in a argument or a discussion, you know, treatment versus treatment free, a lot of times you got to know both sides. And sometimes if you're treatment free, just like I was when I started, or after starting a little while and figuring out how harsh the treatments we used to use were, we don't see both sides of it as well. A lot of treatment-free beekeepers don't see how healthy their hives can be and their bees can be if they were to treat and get those bugs. Yeah, it might not be the best thing. It might kill a queen every now and then. It might weaken a hive for a little bit, but they recover and they come back a lot stronger. And we don't realize that if we've only seen one side, if we've only seen the treatment-free side. So the people that are trying to learn and that I'm wanting to help, and this is my opinion and suggestion, and you know, I've got a lot of people started in bees and started people with packages, and people have lost bees, didn't encourage them to treat enough, and a lot of those people has lost bees. But my recommendation now is that you are going to have to treat these bees unless everybody is not doing it. You know, if I treat my hives, and I've got hives that do pretty good, if they go rob out a hive from somebody that's treatment free and they have a ton of mites and they die from the mites, or they get weak from the mites, and my hive that has very few mites goes and robs them out, it's called a mite bomb. And they'll bring back all those mites, will jump on them and come back to the hive. And my bees can handle, and will be able to handle more and more as I get into the breeding program and start raising my own queens and raise queens that can handle the mites. They will be able to handle to a large degree a mite load, but they can't handle a mite bomb. If they go to a hive and bring back thousands of mites from a hive that wasn't treated, that was just loaded with mites and it died, they can't handle that. And until we get to a point, I don't know that we ever will, that they can't go rob a hive and bring those mites back with them, it's going to be nearly impossible to not treat and to be treatment free, in my opinion. And that's just my opinion. And it's opinion of somebody that's lost 49 out of 50 hives. So I would encourage you to really look at treatments, really look at treating more than once, probably 2 or 3 times a year as a minimum. I would encourage you to do that. Bees bounce back from the treatment. And a lot of the treatments that we have now are not hard on the bees. I know even the feral hives, the guy I was talking to said he got the hives out of the swarm traps. He put out some swarm traps and caught those bees, feral hives, out of the trees that hadn't been treated, but the ones I did too. And the ones I caught had mites, and they had hive beetles, and they brought them back with them. So they wasn't treated, but they still had the pests and diseases. There's one hive that was weak, and I treated it, and when I treated it, you could actually see, I don't know that I've ever seen a difference from a week. They were lethargic before I treated, and after I treated, they were a lot more energetic and did a whole lot better. You could see the difference just looking in the hive. So it made a really big difference on the health of that hive. How bad it is, you know, things we thought we knew 20 years ago, we didn't know as well as we thought, and maybe there's things, maybe it's worse or maybe it's better than what we think it is now. But the people I see that's successful, the ones that I see that's making a living off of this, the ones that's making a lot of honey, the ones that sell a lot of bees, are treating their hives. The successful beekeepers are treating their hives. And I don't see how you can argue with that. Another thing about the guy I was talking to, we both had similar operations. He had caught his bees. He had about 20, like I say, about 20 hives he caught from swarm traps, or from swarms, and feral hives, and that's what I've got. Pretty close to, I've got 22 right now. Just went and checked the ones here in the yard, and they're all doing good. But I challenged him that we should follow each other's channel. He told me to follow him and keep up with him, and so he could show me that his hives survived without treatment. And I told him that I would if he followed me as well, and we could compare and see how the treatment hives did against the treatment-free hives. And it would be a fair assessment. We do these videos, and I show you the same hives I show you this week. It'll be the same hives I show you next week. If they die, they won't be there no more. So you can't, you can't pull the wool over anybody's eyes because we got it all on video. But apparently he didn't want to do that because I didn't hear any more from him after that. So, but I still think it would be a neat thing to do somebody that was comparable size and got the bees from the same spot, and we're comparing apples to apples to see how they do and see how they hold up. And I think we can learn. I think too often we shut each other down and we don't listen. I'm open to listening. I think there's things we can learn from treatment-free beekeepers. I just don't happen to agree with the philosophy that that's the best way to keep bees. But I think it's good, and I think we can learn a lot from that, to do that, to keep track of a treatment, somebody that treats their hives versus somebody that doesn't treat their hives, and see how it works out, see how it goes. So I still think that would be neat. If somebody else wants to try it, I would be open to it. And we'll just see how it does. I mean, that's all we can do. But always keep an open mind, always try to learn and listen to other people. My dad always gives advice to listen to advice from anybody, even if it's a 5-year-old, and pray about it, and then you can either choose to act on it or choose not to act on it, but always listen. And too many times we shut each other down and don't listen because you don't know we think you don't know what you're talking about, or we just get an attitude about it. I think pride gets involved, and we don't listen. So I always want to listen, but I always want to do what's best. And I'm going to do what's best for my bees. I'm not going to, if I can help it, I'm not going to let them die. If there's something I can do about it, things are going to happen, but I'm not going to purposefully let them die. I'm going to do the best I can and do right by the bees, just like I would any other farm animal that we keep. So just my 2 cents. Like I say, I hope you're learning something from my experience. I hope you're able to get something out of these videos, and I look forward to doing more. So I'll see you on the next one.